Two salespeople, same product or opportunity, one closes, the other doesn't. Here's why pros think differently, and here's exactly how they think differently. Who would like to be a top closer? Who would like to be one of the best closers in your company or your organization or team or whatever? I'm going to give you some of the differences, and you might identify yourself with some of the differences and identify some places that you need to change. Now, the truth is, I've done this with a lot of people. I can help you go from amateur to pro very quickly. If you'd like to learn more about my team, group, or one-on-one coaching, just drop the word coach and we'll get you over information to that. Just drop the word coach and I'll send you how to learn more about my either team, group, or one-on-one coaching. So if you drop the word coach, we'll get that to you. I'm going to identify what I believe is the top 3 differences between an amateur who's really struggling to close and someone who's a pro that just makes it rain, right? Just makes it close. Now, you might, if you've watched my content for a while, you might think that I'm only going to say one word, and that's posture, but that's I'm not going to go there. Yes, I do agree that posture is one of the main differences between a top closer and a non-top closer, but I'm going to give you 3 specific things. So an amateur is almost always worried about looking bad. I don't want to look bad. I don't look needy. I don't want to look bad. This is what causes them to not be good at follow-up. Like no one comes out of the womb good or bad at follow-up. You either choose that it's important or you choose that something else is more important. Well, guess what amateurs think is more important than follow-up? Not looking bad. Now, come on, be honest. Be honest. Do you struggle with follow-up? Do you struggle with follow-up? And those of you who struggle with follow-up, do you also think about, well, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to look like I'm chasing them. I don't want to bug them. Be honest. It'll help you if you are. It's all about prioritization. Do you prioritize following up like a top closer would? Or do you prioritize not looking bad? I don't want to look bad. I don't want to bug them, chase them, beg them. Now, keep in mind, I'm not suggesting that you beg, chase, or bug anybody, but that can be completely disassociated with follow-up. You can follow up and not be begging, bugging, or chasing. And that's what top closers understand that amateurs don't. It's one of the things. Number 2, an amateur, when they're going to sell their product, their service, or their opportunity, they may think, well, I'm not sure if I can support them, or I'm not sure if I can do what's needed to meet their needs. So they'll leave this chasm of what are the expectations of the person? I'll tell you a quick story. So I remember this lady. I don't know why, but a lot of these conversations, I remember exactly where I was. At the time, we were living in a community called, I think Bel Lago is what it's called. And I was walking on the sidewalk and this lady had reached out to me and I get on the phone with her and she says, hey, I want to join you. I want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, what makes you say that? Because it was kind of interesting how she said it. And she goes, and this was when I was focused on building a network marketing business. And she says, my last uplines sucked. They didn't help me. And I'm like, okay. Now, a mistake would have been if I said, okay, sure, let's get you signed up. And I don't know her expectations. Clearly, she had expectations of her past uplines that they didn't meet. So shouldn't I understand what her expectations are? Okay. And so I said, okay, well, what did they do wrong or what didn't they do? And she said, they never called me. And I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to drill in here. Are you saying that you called them and they never called you back? And she goes, no, they just never called me. And I'm like, okay. So if they would have called you, what would you have wanted them to say? And she goes, I don't know, like pump me up and stuff and like tell me that I can do it and motivate me and stuff. And I said, got it. Okay. Well, here's the deal. I'm not going to call you either. What? Now, so far, this doesn't sound like a very good close, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to call you either. Now, if you reach out to me, I will always return your call. I'll always follow up with you, always. But I'm not going to reach out to you and pump you up or motivate you. That's kind of what the group stuff is for. If I call you, then I'm setting a precedent that you should call everyone in your organization too, regardless of their performance. And that's a bad precedent. It's not very duplicatable. And she's like, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, hey, I understand if you don't want to move forward because I'm, totally cool. She goes, no, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining it to me. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. See, an amateur will think, I don't know if I can support them. And this is more of I don't want to say it's completely subconscious, but it's kind of not so conscious that they're aware of it. It's not so subconscious. This is an interesting one. They overinflate the expectations of the person without any evidence. So they think, oh, this person's going to want me available at midnight on Sundays, and this person's probably going to want me to call them every day, and you have no evidence of that. You have no idea what their expectations are. Maybe their expectations is you sign them up and you go away. I've had people like that. Maybe that's their expectation. But see, an amateur won't find that out. An amateur won't find out what is the expectations in support of this person. What do they expect? Because if you get their expectations, then you can either say, hey, I don't do that, and you guys can make the choice of do they move forward or not, or you correct an expectation, like the example that I gave. So first of all, amateurs, they don't want to look bad. That's their highest priority. I don't want to look bad. I'm so nervous. I don't want to look bad. I don't want them to talk bad about me. What are they going to say? So worried about looking bad. Number two, they have no idea what the expectations of the person they're selling to is. Do I have to come and service their machine? Do I have to come and install it? Do I have to call them every day? They have no idea. So they overinflate the expectations of the person, and they say things like, yeah, they probably would have been a pain in the butt. I've had super producers. I've had lots of people that were absolutely not a pain in the butt, but the amateur will overinflate the expectations of the person they're selling to. Number three, now I'll be honest, you can overcome this one because the beginning of my career, I thought this a lot. But the amateur will think they'll probably just say no. They'll probably just say no. Now I'll be honest, I had that in the beginning of my career. So the beginning of my career, I was in foreclosure. I'd lost everything, went through divorce, depressed, $1 million in debt. I had failed at 11 or 12 network marketing companies. I'd failed in real estate. I'd failed at a title company. I'd failed in about everything you can possibly imagine, right? So I was very down on myself, but I used just sheer willpower to go and get 20 no's a day. And I'll be honest, I remember looking at the yellow pad of names and be like, they're just going to say no to do it. Hey, I'm doing this thing. And then they'd say, some of them would say yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, like, what? And I did so much of that eventually I stopped expecting the no. I stopped expecting them to shoot me down. And it got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, to where I just assumed it was a yes. I just assumed. Now let's transition. What about the pros? What about the pros? We can't do amateurs versus pros and not talk about the pros. Well, the pros, they believe that their service, product, or opportunity will change the person's life. So instead of operating from, I don't want to look bad, I don't want people to talk about me, they're like, you know what? I'm excited to change this person's life. I think this is going to change the trajectory of their ancestry. I think this is going to change their family. I think it's going to change their dynamics. They'll probably move to the Caribbean. They'll probably build a new house. They'll probably travel the world. A pro sees possibility more than probability. So, Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life's in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit, right? Fruit is always meant to mean a result, right? So death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Those who are emotional about what they say create that result in their life. If you're out there professing to yourself in the mirror, to everyone else, that you believe that your product, service, or opportunity will change someone's life, guess what'll happen? You'll see lives changed. Now, if you prefer New Testament, that's Matthew 15:18. Matthew 15:18 says, it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles a person, it's what comes out of their mouth. And so we don't want to defile our results, right? We want to speak life into what it is that we're doing. And Psalm 35:27 tells us that the Lord delights in the prosperity of his servant, right? So a pro believes that what they sell can change someone's life. Number two, instead of being worried about supporting, they're excited to see people grow. I'm excited to see someone grow. I just saw a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. They had a picture of this lady, and she was major tattoos everywhere, all over her face, and piercings and everything, and kind of an intense picture. And the caption said, would you share Jesus with this person? And I thought, what a dumb question, right? Of course. Now, what would the amateur think? I'll probably get shot down. What would the pro think? Holy crap, she's going to change her life. See the difference? Right? And number three, where the amateur may think, I just think my opportunity is expensive, or, these pills are a lot of money, right? The amateur is focused on cost. The pro is focused on transformation. Big difference. Now, you may think that You got all these locked in, but you know how you know if you're an amateur or a pro? Can anyone guess? How do you know? How do you know if you're an amateur or a pro? I'll give you a clue. It's not by what you think, it's by your results. If you are consistently closing sales, then yeah, you probably lean more toward a pro. If you're consistently getting people tell you maybe or be on the fence or tell you, I'll reach out to you when the time is right or whatever, you probably lean more toward the amateur. And you know what? That's okay because that's not a damnation. I was an amateur. I was an amateur at speaking. I was an amateur at video. I was an amateur at sales. I was an amateur at everything I've ever tried. I didn't have some natural like ability to do this stuff. Now, some people do. I've seen natural salespeople. Usually they're not the greatest trainers because they don't know what it's like to think otherwise than what they were naturally, kind of born with. But it's okay. It's okay to admit what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm an amateur. Guess what? An amateur can only get better. They can only get better. I can help you go from amateur to pro very quickly, usually in one to 3 sessions, analyzing your scripts, analyzing your brand, taking a look at what it is that you're doing to when you talk to prospects. Drop the word coach if you'd like to learn more about my team, group, or one-on-one coaching. Tag someone who you think may be struggling with some of this. And I appreciate you so very much. I do hope this was helpful. God bless you and your family, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.